Black CEO told, "We don't serve people like you." 10 minutes later, she owned the place. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. The maitre d's voice cracked through the marble dining room like a whip. "There's no table for you. Not tonight." The words didn't just land, they detonated. Conversation died mid-sentence. Silverware froze halfway to plates, and from behind the polished host stand, the blonde woman in the slate-gray suit held a reservation slip between her fingers, then ripped it in half, slow, deliberate, like she wanted the entire room to watch it die. The paper snapped. Gasps rippled across the crowd. Phones tilted upward recording, pretending not to. At the center of it all stood Jordan Carter. Tall, poised, camel blazer draped over her shoulders like armor forged from patience. Her expression didn't move. Not anger, not shock, not even the courtesy of surprise. Just a quiet, sharpened stillness, the kind that makes the air recalibrate around it. The maitre d' leaned forward, chin high. "Maybe try somewhere, more appropriate," she said, letting her eyes slide down Jordan's outfit with a slow, venomous sweep. Behind her, a cluster of diners watched openly. A woman in a blue dress raised her phone higher. A man in plaid whispered, "She didn't look like she belonged anyway." Someone snickered. Jordan didn't turn. She didn't defend herself. She simply placed her bag on the counter, smooth and controlled, as if the room wasn't folding in on itself. Her voice came out low silk over steel. "I have a reservation under Carter." The maitre d' smirked. "Had," she corrected. "It's canceled, and we don't serve walk-ins pretending to be VIP." Then she pushed the torn halves of the reservation toward Jordan like crumbs. A security guard approached from the side, broad stance, trained to obey tone, not truth. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, already assuming the answer. "Just removing someone who shouldn't be here," the maitre d' replied. Loud, confident, performative. Behind Jordan, the room shifted, hushed judgment slithering between tables. A young hostess watched from the podium, eyes widening, fingers trembling over the screen. She knew what she saw in the system 10 minutes earlier. She knew this wasn't a mistake, but she stayed silent. For now. Jordan took in one slow breath. It was the kind of breath someone learns after decades of swallowing rooms like this. The breath of someone who has been told not for you, in more tones, more places, more ways than the world likes to remember. At 16, she had stood in a lobby just like this one, told she didn't look like the kind of girl who could afford dinner. At 27, she watched a man tear up her business card and call it cute. At 42, she built an empire out of those moments. Now she stood here again, quiet, composed, dangerous. Before anyone could blink, the maitre d' snapped her fingers at the guard. "Escort her out. She's wasting everyone's time." The guard stepped closer. Jordan didn't move. She lifted her head, eyes steady, voice calm in a way that chilled the room more than shouting ever could. And that's the moment the hook tightens. But before we go any further, before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to Jordan Carter. A camera shutter clicked. A man whispered, "What's she going to do?" The maitre d' folded her arms, victory already blooming on her face. Jordan looked at the two torn halves of her reservation. Then she said quietly, "Are you sure you want to do this?" The room didn't know it yet, but this was the last calm second before everything flipped. Jordan didn't move. Not when the maitre d' crossed her arms. Not when the guard shifted his weight, ready to grab her arm. Not even when another guest whispered, loud enough to sting, "Why do they always try to sneak in?" She stood there like carved stone, still, precise, unshakable. The room wasn't loud, but it vibrated, like a string pulled too tight. The white tablecloths, the chilled wine glasses, the dim amber lights, everything elegant suddenly felt hostile. turned against her by the tilt of one woman's voice. The maitre d' slid the torn reservation slip across the counter. Pieces of it fluttered like dead petals. "I said," she repeated, leaning in, "there is no Carter on the list." Her tone had changed. Less confidence, more insistence, the kind used to prop up a lie before it collapses. Jordan's eyes traced the shredded paper for a beat. Inside, a quiet memory rose, uninvited, familiar. 17 years old, a mall boutique in Atlanta, trying to return a dress with the receipt still in her hand. The clerk looking at her the same exact way this woman was looking at her now. Suspicious, out of place, disposable. The room came back into focus. The guard stepped closer. "Ma'am, we need you to clear the area." Jordan lifted her chin 1 inch. A tiny movement, but it froze him. From the side podium, the young hostess, the only one in the picture who seemed to remember how humanity works, swallowed hard. Her fingers hovered above the iPad like it might burn her. She whispered to the maître d', barely audible. I think I saw her name, earlier, in the VIP list." The maître d' shot her a glare sharp enough to slice. "You must have misread it," she snapped. Then to Jordan, "You are not on the list." End of discussion. A couple at the bar paused their conversation, leaning closer. A teenager lifted his phone, pretending to adjust the brightness but actually hitting record. The restaurant's soundtrack, slow jazz, carried on obliviously, but every note felt off-key now, tension vibrating beneath it. Jordan finally spoke. 4 words, soft, unrushed. "Then check it again." Was a very stupid. The maitre d' smirked, tapping her nails on the counter. "We don't recheck for guests who don't belong here." There it was, the line that turned air into ice. A subtle shift moved through the room. Not loud, not explosive, but undeniable. Jordan didn't blink, didn't take the bait, didn't mirror the cruelty. That restraint, clean, crisp, lethal, unsettled the staff more than anger would have. The guard exhaled sharply. "Ma'am, I'm asking you nicely. Step aside." He reached out, and the hostess, the young one with trembling hands and a conscience fighting to surface, whispered again, louder this time, unable to swallow it. I'm serious. I saw her name." The maitre d's jaw tightened. "Enough." She grabbed the tablet from the hostess's hands, spinning it around, and in doing so, briefly exposed the screen to a cluster of diners standing nearby. A man in a navy blazer squinted. A woman beside him raised her eyebrows. They saw it. A name, highlighted in gold. Carter VIP. Priority. And then, with a flick of her finger, the maitre d' closed the tab. As if erasing the truth could erase the witness. Jordan saw it. The diners saw it. The hostess saw it most painfully. The maitre d' tossed the tablet back to the podium like trash. "This conversation is over," she declared. "Security will escort you out." Jordan's voice appeared again, cool, centered, the kind of calm that doesn't soothe but warns. "You're making a mistake." The guard moved closer. Too close. His hand hovered near her elbow, the universal prelude to force. The room tightened. The hostess flinched. A knife paused mid-air over a steak. Wine glasses stilled. Phones angled higher. Jordan didn't step back. Not an inch. Not when the maitre d' smirked like she'd won. Not when the guard braced to take her arm. Not when the crowd leaned in, expecting humiliation to unfold. Instead, Jordan slowly reached for her phone. Not fast. Not defensive. Not afraid. Just deliberate. Measured. Controlled. The first move of someone who never needed the room's permission to exist in it. The tension snapped like a stretched wire. And that was the moment everything shifted, even though no one understood why yet. The storm was waking up. The guard's hand didn't land gently. It hovered for one last second uncertain, searching the room for support, then closed around Jordan's arm. Not a shove, not a violent grab, but a claiming, a gesture that said, "You don't get to stand here." Gasps rippled across the dining room like a gust of wind hitting water. A fork slipped from someone's fingers. A waiter froze mid-step, tray trembling. The teenage boy stopped pretending and openly hit record. The maitre d' straightened her blazer, chin high, victorious. "Finally," she muttered, "let's get this over with." Jordan didn't pull back. She didn't wrench her arm away. She simply looked down at the guard's hand, quiet, steady, razor still, until even he felt the weight of the moment pressing against his skin. Before she could speak, the hostess, the young woman who'd been silenced twice, finally broke. "Don't touch her!" she burst out, voice cracking with the courage she'd been swallowing for minutes. Her words sliced across the room, louder than the maître d's entire performance. But her protest came too late. The damage had already been done. Jordan closed her eyes for half a breath, and the world folded backward. Flashback age 19. A glossy restaurant in Midtown. Dress shirt too big, shoes too clean, hope too bright. She'd waited 20 minutes for a table she'd reserved. One-man manager, red tie, bored eyes, had tapped her arm, just like this guard, and said, "Sweetheart, this area is for paying guests." She showed her confirmation. He didn't even glance at it. He pointed at the door. Her throat had burned all night. Not from tears, she refused to let them fall, but from the heat of humiliation, blistering under her ribs. That night she promised herself, "One day, no one will ever touch me like that again." Until today. Until now. The present snapped back around her like a whip. Jordan opened her eyes. The guard felt shift something in the way she stood, the way the air tightened, the way the entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. He released her arm slowly, like touching a live wire. But the maître didn't notice, or didn't care. "She needs to leave," she barked, addressing the guard as though Jordan were luggage, not a living person. "Walk her out, through the back door if you have to." There. The back door. The quiet way. The humiliating way. A couple near the window exchanged looks uneasy, disapproving. A man at the bar muttered, "This is too much." A woman whispered, "Why doesn't she fight back?" But Jordan did fight back, just not the way they expected. She lifted her phone. Not to call the police. Not to record the staff. One tap, just one. It was subtle, almost invisible. But the hostess saw it. And her eyes widened the way someone's eyes widen when they realize the lion they've cornered was never cornered at all. The maître d' scoffed. "Texting won't save you." Jordan didn't reply. She didn't need to. The guard took one step back, uncertain now, regretting the weight of his fingers on her arm. Sensing the shift, the maître d' doubled down. "You think you can intimidate us?" she hissed. "This is our restaurant, our rules. And people like you—" She didn't finish the sentence. Because Jordan raised her head, and for the first time, she looked directly at her. Not cold, not angry, just done. A flavor of silence that carried centuries inside it. A silence that said, "You've crossed your last line with me." The hostess stepped forward again, voice trembling but stronger. "I saw her name," she repeated. "It was there. You know it was there. If you nutwerg." The maître d' snapped, "Go back to your station before I—" "You tore up her reservation," the hostess fired back. Now the room truly listened. A woman near the entrance gasped. A couple stood, shifting away from the maître d'. Someone hissed, "This is discrimination straight up." Phones were no longer discreet. They were aimed, full, front-facing, documenting every breath. Jordan finally spoke. "You shouldn't have put your hands on me." She said it softly, almost gently. But the impact hit like a dropped chandelier. The maître d' scoffed foolishly, fatally. "What are you going to do about it?" Jordan's gaze dropped to her phone. The unseen message had already gone out. Protocol was already breathing, waking, moving. She looked back up, voice like glass sharpening under pressure. "You're about to find out." And for the first time, the maître d', the guard, the entire restaurant, felt a shift. The kind that comes right before the storm arrives. The maître d' froze. Something in Jordan's voice, that quiet, sharpened certainty, made her posture falter for the first time. A tiny crack, barely visible, but the room saw it. And so did the young hostess. She had been standing stiff as glass, hands clasped by her waist, breathing in tiny, careful sips. She wasn't supposed to speak. She wasn't supposed to interfere. She wasn't even supposed to look directly at VIP guests unless addressed. But she had seen the truth. She had seen the reservation. She had seen the gold-highlighted name, Carter Executive Priority. And she had watched her supervisor tear it up like trash. Her chest rose, once heavy, decisive before she stepped forward again. "Miss Carter," the hostess said, louder than before, "I saw your reservation this afternoon. It was valid." The dining room inhaled as one. The maitre d' spun toward her. Her smile was gone. Her mask cracked open. "Emily," she hissed, "get back to your station." But Emily didn't move. It was small, her feet stayed planted, her hands still slightly trembling, but the act was enormous. Shockwaves rippled through the room. A man near the front whispered, "She's standing up for her." Another murmured, "This is getting ugly." Jordan didn't turn to Emily, but her eyes softened for half a second, a silent acknowledgement, like offering a hand without lifting it. Emily continued, braver now, words tumbling out. "And her name wasn't just on the list. It had the priority tag. You deleted it." The maitre d's voice cracked like a whip, sharp enough to burn. "Enough. One more lie out of your mouth, and you're done here." "It's not a lie," Emily whispered. Then, louder, "It's the truth." A ripple of murmurs rose from the tables low, disbelieving, indignant, phones tilted higher. Screens glowed. A digital jury assembling in real time. Jordan stood still at the center of it all, the eye of a storm she didn't create but would end. The guard shifted uneasily. He glanced at the maitre d', then at Jordan, then at Emily, guilt beginning to seep across his expression like spilled ink. "Maybe we should double-check," he muttered. The maitre d' rounded on him. "Don't you dare get soft." But her authority was bleeding out with every passing second. A couple approached cautiously, the ones who'd glimpsed the iPad earlier. "We actually saw her name too," the woman said. "When you grabbed the tablet." "You saw nothing," the maitre d' snapped, but her voice cracked mid-sentence. The man shook his head. "We know what we saw." Emily's voice gained strength, rising from the fragile whisper it had been. "She had a reservation, and you tore it up. You targeted her. You humiliated her. This isn't policy." Then she said the sentence that detonated the entire room. "This is discrimination." Silence. Thick, electric, suffocating. No one moved. No one blinked. Even the maitre d' stood speechless, cornered by truth spoken too loudly to bury. The guard looked sick. A waiter lowered his tray to the nearest table, hands shaking. The teenage boy muttered, "Oh man, this is going viral like crazy." Someone at the bar said, "Call the manager." Another corrected him, "I think she is the manager." "Not her," he said, nodding toward Jordan. "Her." 8. The maitre d', now visibly rattled, clung to the last crumbling shard of control. "Everyone stop filming," she commanded. No one listened. Jordan finally turned not to the maitre d', not to the guard, but to Emily. "Thank you," she said quietly. 2 words, soft as breath. Yet they hit harder than anything that came before. Emily swallowed. I couldn't watch it happen." "You did the right thing," Jordan replied. The maitre d' erupted. "This is absurd. She doesn't belong here." She walked in. Jordan looked back at her with a calm, so steady it felt like a verdict. "You keep saying I don't belong," she said, "but you never stop to ask why you believe that." The maitre d' opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Jordan stepped forward once, closing the distance between them by inches, not aggression, but inevitability. "You touched me. You tore up documented proof. You ignored your own staff, and now your entire dining room knows it." "I am brasted." The maitre d' trembled. Even the guard looked away. Emily whispered, almost to herself, but loud enough to echo. She didn't raise her voice once, and somehow she's the only one in control. Jordan held the maitre d's stunned gaze for one long, unwavering second. Then she said, "This was your final warning." The room didn't understand the meaning yet, but they would. Very soon. As Jordan lowered her phone, a message buzzed through, confirmation that her earlier tap had gone somewhere, reached someone, awakened something. The first domino had fallen, and the entire restaurant felt it. The maitre d' wasn't done. Humiliation has a flavor, sharp, metallic, but desperation has its own scent. It clings. It spreads. And now it poured off her in waves. She stepped closer to Jordan, too close, invading her space with a kind of confidence that comes only from years of unchecked authority. "You think you can intimidate us with theatrics?" she hissed. "This is a private dining room. A premium reservation space. You don't get to walk in here and rewrite the rules. Jordan didn't blink. But the maître d' wasn't speaking for order anymore, she was speaking for ego, and ego always reaches for the ugliest word in the drawer. You people always think. She didn't finish the sentence. Not because she caught herself, but because the room reacted before Jordan did. A collective intake of breath. A soft, "Oh my God," from the bar. A man near the entrance shook his head in disbelief. A woman whispered, "She did not just say that." The maître d' froze, realizing too late she'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Emily, the young hostess, stepped back as if she'd been slapped. Jordan stood still, but something in her posture changed. Not anger, not even pain, but a cold, almost surgical clarity. The guard swallowed. "Ma'am, maybe just stop talking." But humiliation loves an audience. And the maître d', unable to feel the ground crumbling under her, reached for the final blow. She pointed at the shredded reservation on the counter. "You want a table so badly?" she sneered. "Then pick up your trash and leave." Emily's breath hitched. A waiter whispered, "This is too far." But the maître d' went further still. She reached out, fingers extended, and pushed Jordan's shoulder. Barely a shove, barely a touch, but violent in its implication. Phones shot up instantly. Glasses rattled as someone stood abruptly. The guard looked horrified. Emily gasped, a hand flying to her mouth. Even the maître d' seemed surprised that she'd done it, that her hand had actually made contact. And that was the moment the world fell away, replaced by memory. Flashback, age 23. A tech conference. A networking event she'd saved 3 months to attend. She wore her only blazer. She carried resumes printed at the campus library. At the registration table, the woman in charge never looked up, just waved her away like clutter. "You're in the wrong line," she'd said. Jordan had explained that she was an invited applicant. She'd shown her badge, shown her confirmation. None of it mattered. Security was called. She was escorted out. The guard had put his hand where this maître d's hand now rested. Same pressure, same dismissal, same sting. That night she walked 5 blocks in heels, blistered and shaking. And she made a promise. One day, the door they push me out of will be a door I own. Reality snapped back. Jordan lifted her head slowly. The maître d's hand was still on her shoulder. The room was no longer quiet. It was charged like static before lightning hits metal. Jordan spoke, her voice low, clean, threaded with steel. "I will give you one chance," she said, "to remove your hand." The maître d' scoffed. "You don't give chances here." "I do." Her fingers pressed harder. The guard whispered urgently, "Ma'am, stop." The maître d' sneered. "No, she's leaving, and I'll call the police myself if—" Jordan cut her off without raising her volume. "You touched me. You pushed me. And you did it in front of witnesses." A man at the nearest table raised his phone higher. "We're all witnesses," he said. Emily stepped between them, voice shaking with anger instead of fear. "Don't touch her again," she snapped, "or you'll be explaining it to more than just the police." The maître d' turned on her. "You're fired. You hear me? Fired." Wallach spit her, but shouting didn't restore authority. It only made the room recoil. Jordan took a single, unhurried step back, freeing herself from the maître d's grasp without force, without needing to. The maître d' grabbed at that moment of space, desperate to reclaim momentum. "You think you're powerful?" she snarled. "You're nobody here. Nobody." Jordan looked at her the way a surgeon looks at an X-ray, calm, unbothered, already knowing the outcome. "No," she said quietly. "I'm the reason this room exists." A ripple went through the diners. The maître d' blinked. What? "And you," Jordan continued softly, "have no idea what you've just done." Phones were rolling. Guests leaned in. Even the guard took a step away from the maître d', as if distance could spare him from the fallout. The maître d' stammered, "You're bluffing. You're—" Jordan lifted her phone again. One tap. Same invisible signal as before. Only this time, the maître d' felt it even without seeing anything. A shift in the air. A low, distant hum of consequences gathering. Jordan's next words were soft enough to feel whispered into the spine of the room. This was the last second of your old life. And somewhere beyond the dining room, a system, a protocol, a storm, started to move. Jordan's thumb hovered over her phone for a single heartbeat, long enough for the maitre d' to scoff, long enough for the guard to swallow, long enough for everyone in the room to feel something shift. Then she tapped, just once, a soft, almost delicate gesture. But its impact rolled through the restaurant like distant thunder. The maitre d' laughed too loud, too forced. That again? What, you think calling your little friends is going to change? Jordan didn't look at her. She didn't need to. From the phone, a calm, professional voice answered immediately. Protocol 6 initiated. Standing by. The maitre d' froze mid-sentence. The guard's head snapped up. Emily's breath hitched. The diners looked at each other, puzzled but suddenly alert. Jordan slipped the phone into her coat pocket without breaking eye contact. No explanation. No dramatics. Just that quiet confidence that unnerves bullies more than any shout ever could. The maitre d' tried to recover. Ch. What does that even mean? Jordan tilted her head, as if considering whether she should answer. It means, she said softly, your behavior is being logged in real time. The maitre d's face tightened. The guard took a step back, not because he knew what Protocol 6 was, but because he realized Jordan hadn't invented it on the spot. Whatever it was, it already existed, and she already owned it. A diner at the corner table murmured, "This just got serious." Emily, emboldened now, stepped closer to Jordan, not protectively but aligned, as if recognizing the gravity of the person standing beside her. The maitre d' spat, "You're bluffing. Some customer service hotline, big deal." Jordan's gaze didn't waver. "It's not customer service," she said quietly. "It's corporate security." Another ripple through the room. Corporate security. Not mall cops. Not building staff. A different tier entirely. The maitre d' opened her mouth, then closed it, struggling to find footing in a conversation she was rapidly losing control of. Jordan continued, voice silk over steel. "Every word you've said is being transcribed, every action you've taken is being archived, and every employee involved will be reviewed." The maitre d' stepped back, her bravado shrinking. You can't speak to me like you run this place," she said, voice thinning. Jordan blinked once. Slowly. Like someone deciding how gentle they wanted to be. "I haven't spoken to you like that," she replied. "Not yet." The diners reacted audibly. A low "oh" rolled across the room. The guard looked between them, unsure whose instructions he should follow now. Emily whispered, "Protocol 6. That's top-tier clearance. My friend interned for a hotel brand once. Only executives use that level of system." "Executives?" someone echoed. The maitre d' barked, "No, absolutely not. She's nobody. She walked in here. She doesn't look..." She stopped herself before saying something she couldn't undo. But the pause said it for her. Jordan took one step forward. Not threatening, not aggressive. Just inevitable. "You've spent the last 15 minutes trying to force me out of a room I built," she said quietly. The maitre d' blinked hard. "What?" A man near the bar set his drink down slowly, like he didn't want to miss a syllable. Jordan continued. "You ignored your staff. You attacked a guest. You deleted a confirmed reservation. And you laid a hand on me." Emily nodded softly, confirming every word. Jordan's voice lowered to a calm, surgical whisper. "You've mistaken silence for weakness. That was your first mistake." Her eyes sharpened. "But thinking I'm alone? That was your second." As if on cue, the restaurant doors opened. A woman in a charcoal pantsuit, sharp, composed, carrying a tablet stepped inside with the posture of someone who belonged in boardrooms, not dining rooms. She scanned the space once, found Jordan instantly, and hurried over. "Miss Carter," she said breathlessly, "we received the protocol alert. Do you want full audit mode activated?" The maitre d' turned ghost pale. Jordan didn't raise her voice. "Activate it. Immediately," the woman said, typing. The lights in the restaurant flickered just a subtle glitch, a system handover, and several staff devices chirped as if receiving a push notification. Emily exhaled in awe. Guests murmured. The maitre d' stumbled back, whispering, "Who are you?" Jordan looked at her, not with disdain, not with triumph, with inevitability. "You'll know," she said. In exactly 1 minute, the clock had started, and the room knew it. The storm wasn't coming. It was already here. The maitre d' looked around the room, desperate for anyone to step in and piece her authority back together. But authority doesn't come back once it breaks. It shatters, and hers had just hit the marble floor. "Wait," she stammered, pointing at Jordan. This isn't possible. You can't just trigger corporate protocols. That's for executives, senior executives. I have given Bayerduik." The woman in the charcoal pantsuit corporate liaison, sharp as a blade, didn't even look at her as she continued tapping on her tablet. "Executive override confirmed," she said. "Audit logs are syncing. Staff infractions flagged. Communications preserved." The maitre d's knees dipped almost imperceptibly. Jordan hadn't said a word yet, and that was what terrified her most. Emily stepped closer to Jordan's side, no longer trembling, but anchored, fortified by truth finally stretching its spine. The guard shifted uneasily, eyes darting between the maitre d' and the polished woman with the tablet. Who are you?" he asked Jordan quietly. Not suspicious, not accusatory. Scared. Jordan met his gaze with a calm that didn't threaten, it clarified. But before she answered, the maitre d' tried one last pathetic grasp at control. "You're lying," she snapped. "This is an act. Some prank. You can't." The corporate liaison cut her off without lifting her head. "Miss Carter doesn't do pranks." A collective hush fell. The air seemed to thicken, heavy, waiting, electric. The maitre d' blinked. "See, Carter." Her voice cracked on the name. Guests exchanged looks. "Wait, Carter?" Someone near the bar whispered. "As in Carter Holdings? The hospitality empire? Isn't she?" Emily swallowed hard. "It's her," she murmured. "It's been her the whole time." Still, Jordan hadn't spoken. Because she didn't need to. Power doesn't rush. It arrives. The maitre d' shook her head violently, stepping backward as though the truth itself were physical and advancing. "No, no," she walked in alone. She wasn't dressed, she didn't look. She stopped. Because she'd just heard her own words. And the room heard them too. Jordan finally broke her silence. She stepped forward, slow, steady, the room parting instinctively, like water making way for something ancient and unstoppable. She set her hands lightly on the counter where her reservation had been torn. "When you looked at me," she said softly, "you decided I didn't belong." The maitre d' swallowed, trembling now. Jordan continued, voice a calm so lethal it made the air vibrate. "You called me a liar, a fraud. You touched me. You deleted proof. And you humiliated your own staff trying to protect you." Each sentence was a scalpel, clean, precise, unhurried. "But the part you'll regret most," Jordan said, stepping closer, "is the assumption." Her eyes sharpened. "The assumption that a woman who looks like me can't own a room like this." A woman in the back gasped softly. A man whispered, "Oh my God." The maitre d' stumbled. I didn't know." Jordan leaned in just enough that only the maitre d' felt the full weight of the next words. "That's the problem." Then she straightened, turning to face the entire dining room. Her voice carried now, not loud, not shouted, but amplified by the tension choking the air. "You treated me like a trespasser," she said, "in a restaurant I built." The room broke. Gasps. Whispers. The shock hitting like rolling thunder. Someone whispered, "It's hers?" Another, "She owns this place." A man covered his mouth, staring. Emily looked down, eyes glassy, overwhelmed with vindication. The maitre d' shook her head, staggering backward. "No, this is some mistake, some mix-up, right?" Jordan didn't blink. "I own this restaurant," she said quietly. "And 5 others like it on this block." Silence detonated. Phones rose. Guests stared, dumbstruck. The guard froze. The maitre d's face drained of color entirely. Jordan delivered the finishing line, not loud, but viral, the kind that lands in the spine and stays there. "You called me a fraud. In the company I own." The maitre d' swayed. Someone whispered, "She's finished." Jordan turned to the corporate liaison. "Proceed." "Yes, Miss Carter." And with the next tap of that tablet, the entire room understood. The storm wasn't coming anymore. It had already taken the first head. For one long, suspended second, The restaurant stood frozen around the truth. Then, the collapse began. Not with shouting, not with chaos, but with a sound so soft it was almost delicate. A single chime. The maitre d' looked down at her tablet as the screen flickered. Then another chime. Then another. Notifications bloomed across the device like cracks spreading across glass. Access suspended staff. ID 4012. Access suspended staff. ID 4013. Access suspended staff. ID 4017. Emily gasped. The guard stepped back. The maitre d's breath broke as she tapped the screen with shaking fingers. I don't understand my system. Why is it? Her words collapsed under themselves. Jordan didn't answer. The corporate liaison did, stepping forward with quiet, merciless clarity. Your access credentials have been frozen effective immediately. A full internal audit has been triggered. All actions taken today are now under legal review. The maitre d' clutched the tablet to her chest, as though hugging it might stop the bleeding. This is a mistake, she whispered. You can't do this. You can't do this to me. But the room no longer believed her. The room no longer belonged to her. It belonged to the woman she had tried to erase. Behind the maitre d', the guard's radio crackled. Staff channels flaring to life. Front desk lockout. Manager-level credentials failing. Audit command verified. He looked at Jordan with a dawning, visceral understanding. Not fear. Recognition. The kind that says, I pushed the wrong person. The maitre d's last defense crumbled as her name flashed red on the overhead screen where staff metrics usually cycled. Termination pending review. Do not rely on access. Finalize offboarding prep. Her voice cracked. No, she can't, please. I've worked here for 10 years. Jordan didn't lift a hand, didn't raise her voice. Power didn't need volume. 10 years, Jordan said softly. And this is who you chose to become. The maitre d' looked around wildly, searching for allies. None came. Guests looked away. Waiters stood frozen, stunned by the shift in the universe. Even the guard avoided her eyes. Only Emily stepped forward, but not for comfort. To think I was afraid of losing my job, she whispered. Turns out you were the one who should have been scared. The maitre d' flinched, as if the truth itself struck her. Guests murmured. Some disgusted, some vindicated. Some with open admiration for the quiet storm in a camel blazer who had dismantled an entire hierarchy without ever raising her voice. The corporate liaison looked to Jordan. Miss Carter, shall I proceed with the formal terminations? Jordan's gaze rested on the maitre d', who stood trembling, lips quivering, eyes darting like a cornered animal. And then Jordan said the words that sealed the fate of everyone involved. Proceed. The liaison tapped, and instantly, the maitre d's badge beeped red. Her login died. Her tablet dimmed to black. Her card no longer unlocked the podium drawer. She was done. A man in the corner whispered, "Oh my God, she's firing them in real time." Another murmured, "This is justice. Real justice." But the storm wasn't finished. Next, the guard looked at his radio, his own badge blinking a warning. He swallowed hard. Am I fired?" he asked quietly, unable to hide the tremor. Jordan's eyes softened, but only slightly. "You put your hand on me," she said. "On a guest. On the owner." He closed his eyes. "That's not something this company tolerates. And this place." His radio lit red. He exhaled like someone who'd spent years abusing authority and had finally been forced to face its cost. The maitre d', shaking now, tried one final plea. "You can't just destroy my career in one night." Jordan stepped closer. Not towering, not intimidating, but resolute, grounded, unshaken. "You destroyed it yourself," she said. "In 15 minutes. Her voice dropped lower. Not cruel. Not triumphant. True. This is what accountability feels like. If you can't glass to do it." A murmur rippled across the room, soft applause from the bar, a choked laugh from someone who'd seen too many scenes like this in their own life. Emily stepped beside Jordan, eyes bright, voice steady. "What happens now?" she asked. Jordan looked over the dining room. The guests, the shattered staff, the broken system, and answered with quiet finality. "Now," she said, "we clean house." And with that, the collapse was complete. Swift, clean, and irreversible. The storm had one last strike left. Silence stretched through the restaurant. Not empty, not awkward, but reverent. The kind of silence that follows truth. The maitre d', the guard, and every staff member stripped of their access stood motionless, as though waiting for a sentence to be read. Guests held their breath. Emily's eyes shimmered not with fear now, but pride. Jordan stepped forward, not toward the guilty, toward the room, toward the people who had watched injustice unfold in real time, some frozen by shock, some brave enough to speak, all of them changed by what they had witnessed. Her heels clicked once on the marble, a soft, deliberate sound. It echoed like punctuation. When she finally spoke, her voice wasn't raised. It flowed, steady and deep. "I want everyone in this room to remember what happened tonight." The maitre d' looked down. The guard shifted, ashamed. Jordan continued, "You saw how quickly dignity can be questioned, how easily someone can be labeled a problem before being seen as a person." Emily exhaled, letting those words settle. Jordan turned slightly, her gaze sweeping the space she had built. The lights, the architecture, the staff meant to represent excellence. "Restaurants are supposed to be livable spaces," she said. "Places where respect is the baseline, not the reward." "Actually did." A soft murmur rose from the back, a quiet agreement from guests who finally felt permission to breathe again. Jordan's voice lowered like a slow closing curtain. "And yet, tonight, some people decided that my presence, my name, my face, didn't fit their idea of who belongs." She paused. "Not for drama, for truth. But that's the thing about belonging," she said. "It isn't something you give me. It's something I already own." The line hit like a cinematic swell. A few guests actually placed their hands over their chests, stunned by the sharpness of it. Jordan glanced toward the corporate liaison, who nodded respectfully. Audit complete, justice executed, the storm fully passed. Then Jordan spoke directly to the staff who had tried to erase her. "You thought my quiet was weakness, but my quiet is a choice." The maitre d' swallowed hard, tears threatening. Jordan added, each word crisp, "I didn't raise my voice. I raised the standard." "It's—" A beat of silence. Someone near the bar whispered, "Wow." Another said quietly, "Say that again." But she didn't repeat it. Great lines don't need echoes. They imprint. Jordan looked at Emily next. The young hostess stood straighter under her gaze, cheeks warm, eyes full of gratitude. "You stood up," Jordan told her. "When it wasn't easy, when it wasn't popular. Excellence starts with people like you." Emily nodded, breath shaking. "Thank you," she whispered. Jordan lifted a hand, negligently graceful, effortless authority. "To all guests," she said, "your meals tonight are fully covered. Every one of you deserved better than what unfolded here." Gasps. Soft applause. A few people wiped their eyes. "And as for the future," Jordan continued, "this restaurant will not be defined by tonight's failure. It will be defined by how we rebuild." She turned toward the staff with locked-out badges. "You chose to act from bias, not service. From ego, not integrity." Their knees nearly buckled. "And so your time here ends," she said calmly. "But mine does not." The finality landed with the weight of a judge's gavel. The liaison approached. "Miss Carter, all offboarding procedures are complete. Do you want me to escort them out?" Jordan shook her head. "No," she said softly. "The world is already watching. Let them walk." And so they did, slow, small, humbled, while diners parted like the sea to let them pass. Emily watched them leave, then looked back at Jordan. "What now?" she asked quietly. Jordan walked to the podium where her reservation had been deleted. She touched the wooden edge gently, reclaiming it. "Now," she said, "we reopen. With people who understand what dignity looks like." The room exhaled. Guests applauded. Emily smiled wide, relieved, empowered. Jordan turned toward the entrance, her silhouette framed by warm light, posture unshaken. With one last breath, she delivered the line that would live forever in the retellings of this night. Power isn't proven by noise. It's proven by who's still standing when the noise ends. And Jordan Carter, Black CEO, owner, architect of justice, stood tall, unmoved, unbroken, untouchable. The story didn't end in anger. It ended in dignity, and dignity always wins.